present and being part of this evening as we get to hear the words and the thoughts of Fran Bull in a talk that she has titled A Life in Art. But I'd like to thank Peter Miller and his student quartet 16 Under 4 for opening this evening with live music. I need to thank Bill Ramage. Bill is the retired director of the Visual Arts program at Castleton College, who over a year ago, when he was still the acting director, talked to me about Stations, the work that Fran was creating in her studio. And I was very intrigued, and he said, would you like to collaborate? Because there's no way that either one of our galleries individually can bring this body of work to Rutland, but together we could actually do it. I met Fran Bull through a series of serendipitous experiences. A year ago, I traveled to her studio in Brandon, where she was working on the Stations. Many of them were complete and hung, and many were still under construction. And it was getting to see the artist and her muse at work that just completely sold me on the idea that somehow Bill and I had to make this happen. What Fran creates causes ripples of enthusiasm, ripples that flow out and touch the lives of others. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Fran Bull.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. Right off the bat, I want to thank Robert Black, because the marvelous visual presentation you're about to see was completely composed by him. And I want to thank Meg Barrows and thank Bill Ramage for creating an inspired collaboration between your two brilliant arts organizations in Rutland. And a huge thanks too to the esteemed Bruce Bouchard for hosting this event here in the charming Paramount Theater. I will attempt to speak about what it's like to be an artist, to see and think and live as an artist, to be inside an artist's mind. I won't present scientific research, I have no data. I will share with you what I have learned about these things, having spent my life in art, making art, looking at art, knowing artists, reading about something called art theory, thinking about art, and regarding the world and my life from an artist's perspective. So, what the heck is an artist's perspective? What if instead of just going about your life every day, you were in a special mindset? You hear a phrase, for example, mindset, and a funny picture comes into your head, a frozen brain perhaps, and you begin to think about the set mind. Then you ask yourself, is my mind set? Am I set in my thinking so that maybe nothing can enter and nothing old can leave? As an artist, you know you want to be open to inspiration when it appears. You want to be receptive to ideas floating about in the world and to ideas that well up from that place within that has a million names, but no scientist has ever been able to locate in time and space. And when you light upon an idea, you want to make something. We human beings define ourselves in many ways. Artists, for their part, are continually ruminating on what it is to be a human being, in much the way philosophers, scientists, and poets do from their perspectives and within their disciplines. The human species is called Homo sapiens, literally wise man, but for purposes of this talk, we shall include women. Sapiens is perhaps more accurately translated as conscious or self-aware. Homo ludens is another way to think about the human being. We get our word ludicrous from this Latin root. Homo ludens describes us as the players. We invent games, we do sports, we joke. None of these is crucial for our survival. I think of them as celebrations of our being, our humanity. And then we have the fascinating definition, Homo faber or Homo fabricans, humankind, the makers. We are makers, we make things, we draw, we paint, we cook, we design, we build, We manufacture an endless array of things for our use. We turn thought into thing. But if I ask you, where is your mind? What can you point to? If I ask you what is in your mind, what is in your imagination, you can show me, but indirectly, by pointing to the things you have made. Art, poetry, music, writing, speaking, dancing. The facilitators are our hands, and from there, our tools. There is a certain magic in this. First, there was nothing, and then something. A child will say, I am making a tree. He or she is making a picture of a tree, and interestingly, not distinguishing the drawing from the actual tree. The artist, all grown up and sophisticated, will say, yes, this is a tree, and this is my painting of a tree. Let's also include the artist's eye, the looking and seeing that transpires in the process of making art. Let's consider for a moment the astonishing variety of seeing and thinking and creating that has transpired over centuries of art making in different cultures around the world. We are heirs to a vast cornucopia of images, images that in very many ways tell us who we are, show us our world reflected in art, and take us to other worlds through imagination. Art can reflect life. Art can dazzle the eye and wake up the senses. Art enhances life, literally makes our lives great. Art makes sense of life, gives meaning. Art challenges old, stagnant ideas with regard to what art can be about. Art can lead the viewer into the past. Art can startle and shock. Art can calm the mind and soul. Art can stimulate thought. Art can be a way to show worlds in the imagination. Art can intuit the future. Art can lead us through beauty to images that disturb, but which we accept in order to grow and understand our world. Art can teach you about yourself and about the world of nature and culture just in the process of your looking at it and spending time with it and coming to your own conclusions. When you look at art, have courage and know that you can experience it for yourself. Then go to your teachers and to your books and to the internet to find out more. The art just gets richer the more you know about the artist's intention, the milieu or historical setting. I want to look at what inspires an artist to make art. You go into your studio each day and you are alone with your thoughts, your plans, and your materials. Maybe you have been to a museum lately and seen something you can't stop thinking about. I have been crazy about the Roman busts in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. I visit them every time I go to the museum. I feel as if we are communicating when I look into their faces. I imagine them speaking to me across the centuries. The experience of making art is an experience of following something, allowing that something to unfold, getting lost in the dark wood from time to time, and trusting that the problems along the way will be solved, that all the resources you will need for your project are there, that the final result will be necessarily imperfect, a special branch of human perfection, imperfection, perfectly imperfect. When I began to approach stations, I saw in the mind's eye a cycle of works, figures on beds, stories, scenarios, and this was quite enough to get started. The task became to bridge that gap between inspiration or idea and something concrete, a work of art. This is a short section of the film we are showing in the 2 galleries to help you to get an idea of the process of making stations. Oh, I have to show you. This is my sketchbook. And so the plans are very rudimentary because I have to start building the figures before I know what the heck they really can be. But you see these little sketches. This figure is telling a secret to this figure. And so here they are. They're starting to become real. And I think this is the figure. This is the one that looks like Warren Kimball. And he's going to be whispering into her ear. And she's looking, I hope, faintly amused. Or maybe it's a secret that has national proportions. So, you know, it'll be something like that in the end. So, what work preceded and led up to stations? There was, in fact, a kind of evolution through earlier work in plaster to stations. The sculptural paintings began with a series I called Dark Matter. I was exploring the idea of making painting that lifted off the surface, that emerged from the purely two-dimensional plane and jutted into the third dimension. These works hang on the wall, they are painted, and yet they are straining to occupy three-dimensional space. And when I began with Dark Matter, I was just getting the feel of a special new material, Venetian plaster. So follow the line from Dark Matter to my installation piece in Flanders Field, which was exhibited at the Carving Studio and at the Castleton Christine Price Gallery, to stations. When all 14 pieces were finished after 3 years, they needed to be named. I avoid labels and descriptions because I want you to invent them from your perspective. And here's the secret. I don't always know exactly what my people are up to. Poetry solved the dilemma. Here's an example of a poem I wrote that contained images that later showed up in stations. It's called Cantata for Leone. She lies with her life on the pillow, breathing, a bust jutting above the sheets like those Greco-Roman beauties in the Metropolitan, with tender mouths and eyes caught in some private astonishment, or so it seems, since often matter mocks spirit, chips off a nose, cracks an ear. These 2 works from Station bear titles that come from a poem by poet and author James Agee, Sure on This Shining Night. Here we have a multi-layered inter-arts collaboration. The poet wrote his poem, and now fragments of it accompany 2 works of visual art. You do not see the poem in the art, nor the art in the poem. Read the poem, look at the art, and then just allow your mind to float between the 2. But here's the crazy thing about art. The song comes into rich and full being only when it is performed, and then it recedes into some invisible place, some vast storage and memory in record until it is performed again. By the same token, the visual art is lit by the mind and eyes of the viewer, but it too lives in some cosmic basement when it is not on display. No worries, because it doesn't go away. It remains as a permanent part of the universe, even if you never see it again. Kindness must watch for me this side the ground. Is this a thought in the mind of the curled figure we see in bed alone with an old tablecloth? The poet's words are a reassurance. He speaks of the beauty of the universe, of the shining night we know so well here in Vermont. The song lifts the words as if on wings. Hearts All Whole celebrates family in much the way James Agee invokes family life in his poetry. The image is one of harmony, of things in their place, looking now at the baby in the picture, how the baby looks away to a future his parents may never be a part of. I am reminded of some other lines written by James Agee. Here he invokes the family members who love him, who will not now, not ever, tell me who I am. Actor Matthew Riley has very kindly agreed to read my artist statement.
This child was guided on her journey by a constellation of benevolent and terrifying beings. At 7, I scribbled monsters on my bedroom wall. By night, the moon found my jagged pencil lines. A horrid face, a leering grin, shimmering in moonlight. My monster drawings sprang to life and scared me mightily, as if I hadn't been the author of this mischief. Little green men, phosphorescent like the numbers of an old watch, cavorted in my backyard. One became my friend. We met at my window, had whispered conversations until, suddenly terrified, I ran to my parents' bed. My parents did not welcome my night visits, told me to be brave, told me I was imagining things. There was nothing. An old woman with a face like a walnut shell, she too came to me in the darkness. I named her Helila. She moved slowly across a meadow, almost floating. As she drew closer, I played dead. I did not know she had come with robes flapping like the wings of a blackbird to enfold and protect me. Years later, this truth was revealed. Her name means God in the dark. At 8, in the aftermath of World War II, I drew pictures while the teacher taught God knows what. I drew hundreds of pictures telling stories in my head. Some were erotic. I thought you had intercourse back to back, buttocks to buttocks. I drew these things. As a child artist, I made a fortress against the night, postponed night with graphite and colored wax. My people, the ones you see here, arrive unbidden. I don't know from where. They formed under my hands. They asked for eyes and hair and teeth. I laid them in beds, wrapped them in sheets, like the mummified rulers of ancient Egypt. Draped them like Renaissance deities and the heroes of classical Greece. I made couples, a baby, the goddess Flora. I took them as they came. I thought about my little long life, whom I have known, what I have learned. Mixed mediums, shaped by the child who still holds back the night with pictures that evoke a drama unfolding in the bedroom. Night is intimate. Night is full of secrets. Bed is sacrosanct. Bed is a place for betrayals and for the sealing of covenants. Bed is the holiest altar, the most profane rack. Bed is a stage set for a play improvised by fools. Yes, there is that gargoyle. He abandoned his post atop a building in Paris and took residence in a nearby flat. He steals oranges. He gazes about. He rests after centuries. This child plays with mud and cloth and pigments, flips the bed vertical to make a painting, mixes medium and categories and catechisms, builds a fortress, a walled garden to protect the night, and to protect and enfold a fragile world of beings, ridiculously unreal and curiously alive, shimmering like graphite drawings on a child's wall, caught in moonlight. Now I lay me down to sleep. Fran Bull, Brandon, Vermont.